everyone. I really congratulate you on finding the Orange Hall and being able to join me at this talk. I guess I have the clicker. Here it is, the biggest one I've ever had. Yeah, and my name is Tanja Loktionova. Indeed, I am the founder of Values Value. It's a recruitment team, a Ukrainian recruitment team, and we hire and headhunt the best game dev professionals for games studios. And as for in-game job, I want to make a small correction. We are all European and have already added US region and are going to be a global job platform where you can find any job in the gaming industry in one click. So, today I'm going to share with you insights and analytics and some data and researches on and observations, obviously, on what is going on in Ukraine, what is going on with the games industry, and maybe we'll make some assumptions on what is going to be next. So, the first thing I think we need to know before we talk about today is what Ukrainian games industry was like at the end of 2021. So, we counted more than 30,000 employees in more than 400 studios, branches, and independent teams. And this was booming, this was growing, more and more investments, international companies setting up offices here, lots of educational programs, trainee and junior programs, so it was all growing and emerging and so on. And if we speak about the companies, there were 10 companies which encountered more than 10,000 people. So, and the biggest ones used to be Playrix, Ubisoft, Playrium, Gameloft, Wargaming, and Roommate, and the others. They were very strong outsourcers, including those among the biggest ones. And of course, there were some Ukrainian-based and Ukrainian managed companies with no overseas capital or overseas founders or co-founders, like GSC Game World, AB Games, Frag Labs, and others. So all of them were impacted by war. And even before the war started, we had relocation. Some companies were getting ready to eat long beforehand. Some of them were just not able to believe it, that something is going to happen like that. And even if the company management did believe that something is going to happen and prepared some A, B, C, and D plans, most of the employees were absolutely not ready to relocate anywhere. They just refused even to think about it. I know examples when some Ukrainian-based company rented hotels in the western part of Ukraine and invited some people to go there for a team vacation, like in the middle of February or on the 20th of February, and only 10% of employees were ready to do that. However, when the war started, we had not only relocation, we had evacuation. And this is what most of the people in Ukraine were not ready for. Because even if we expected that there was going to be war, we thought that it would start somewhere from the Luhansk and Donetsk region, and nobody thought that you will have missiles and bombs in Kiev, in Kharkiv, and so many other cities in Ukraine. One more very big impact that crucially influenced what is going on right now with the industry and what was emerging in the end of February is that the borders were closed for mail at the age between 18 and 60. And this influenced not only those male, but their families. Many of them, A, refused to leave the country, though they had such an opportunity. B, left the country, and this also very much influenced the male game developers who stayed. I must say that Kharkiv, as an IT hub, it was the second biggest IT and games industry hub in Ukraine after Kiev. It suffered most, and it continues to suffer. However, Kharkiv people are very strong. Our CTO at InGame job committed to dev, being in the bombshell and at night with mobile internet. And I even know a company who relocated from Kharkiv to Kiev right now, and they are renting a AAA office in the center of Kiev. Yes, so Kharkiv people strong. And one more thing that needs to be kept in mind is that there was a very big influence in Ukraine on the attitude to Russian and Belarusian market, contractors, employers, and employees. And this influenced many different spheres, both because of the people's beliefs and because of the governmental regulations. So maybe those who preferred just to be a bit sneaky and to continue operations in Russia or with the Russian owned companies registered in Russia. They could not do this because of the legislation. Anyway, I'm going to share with you some sources here, yeah, some information. First, the big salary report. This is the report, this is the anonymous survey that we hold for already 5 years. And we ask usually up to 2,500 game developers about their job, their attitude to employees, bonuses, benefits, and so on and so forth. This year we focused on only Ukrainians. Then at InGame job, where we aggregate and have posted all the jobs from Ukrainian companies, and we have an opportunity, the only opportunity on the market, to analyze all the jobs month to month, and I will share this information as well. Besides that, we have inner statistics at values value, because we talked to so many game developers from different countries, and we talked to candidates, and also some open data from different resources. And also I had some expert interviews and sneak peeks from investors in order to share the data with you. So, what's going on with the companies in Ukraine? First, the outsourcers suffered most. And they started suffering since, and the service companies, yeah? They started suffering since, I guess, January, because some of the contractors refused to continue to buy the services. They were very cautious, and when the war started, they just called out so many deals, and our outsourcing companies really had hard times looking for new clients and looking for new orders. The Republic Belarus companies, the Belarusian companies, I'm really sorry for them, for those who were represented in Ukraine. So imagine, in 2021, you have to flee your country because of Lukashenko regime. And many companies who are now sponsoring, for example, this event, like Visor Games or Belka Games or Say Games, and I can continue, they relocated a vast part of their staff to Ukraine. And they started hiring and building offices and the ecosystem and so on and so forth. And now war comes to Kiev, the war comes to Ukraine, and they have to relocate once again. Well, it may be a bit easier since male Belarusians were allowed to leave Ukraine. But they are not only relocating once again, fleeing the country once again, they are also outlaws like Russians, and they're treated quite the same at the moment. So my personal attitude to Belarusian companies and those who had to relocate several times is with a very big sympathy. But if we speak about them as employers, the Russian companies, or the companies with Russian roots, or the companies with offices in Russia, though they could have, there is a number of the biggest ones, you saw those 10 biggest ones. Many of them had offices both in Ukraine, Russia, and elsewhere in the world. And they suffered very big inner, clashes and misunderstanding and disability to communicate with both Ukrainian and Russian employees. And I guess that this is a topic for a separate talk in order to see how these companies tried to cope with the situation. Yeah, unfortunately, some of the companies had to shut down their operations, especially those who were in the process of looking for a publisher or looking for an investor, or those who were young outsourcers. So I guess more than 2%, which means around 10 companies, totally shut down their operations. But however, Ukrainians by now have already found this war-life balance. Yeah? We used to talk about work-life balance, now it is war-life balance. And they work hard, they support the army. Some of them went to join the army or the TRO, but anyway, the remains of their teams managed to deliver products, to deliver services, and to really find this war-life balance. And I must say this, that some companies, including outsourcers, have shown a significant growth in the latest 5 months, including Pingle Games, Kivuru Games, and Roommate. These are the 3 companies who have grown most in the past 6 months, outsourcers who used to have the hardest times at the beginning of war. And I must say that what is on the agenda of companies right now, it's charitable projects and different activities to support both military needs and humanitarian needs of Ukrainians. And besides growing inside of Ukraine, many companies are setting up offices in the EU, or several of them, like in Georgia or Turkey, and they have started to hire both remote or on-site staff from the European Union. So the investments, it was the most interesting thing for me, because in the media, you could hear nothing about investments in Ukrainian market in the past month. So first, they really freezed. I know several examples, and I have already named the examples of companies who shut down their operations. Some VC funds, especially Ukrainian-based VC funds, they just revoked their offers, and some deals just didn't happen, unfortunately. And I must say that the gaming industry, the games development industry, did not receive any systematic support from the government. So there were some tax benefits for all the IT people, but nothing to support games. And maybe this is understandable. But the international institutions, or I don't know, some big association that would do it systematically for the gaming industry in Ukraine, well, nothing happened like that. However, I asked the people around, and in the nearest 5 weeks, we're going to hear announcements, quite big announcements, about 3 deals from 2 different companies, and one of them is more than 20 million deal. Yeah. So something is happening. And what they told me is that we saw how Ukrainians were able to, I don't know the English for figachit, well, to work hard in the times of war. And we just imagine how it's going to be in the peaceful times. And that is why we took this definite decision to invest, and to invest big. And I must say a very big thanks to Epic Games. Well, we know the announced thing, and I will show it a bit later, about their support through Fortnite, yeah, and their huge donation. But what they didn't announce is their huge fund in order to support Unreal Engine teams in Ukraine. It is a multi-million fund, and they just gave grants. They didn't use this opportunity in order to buy out shares, for example, something like that. They gave grants, and they supported game dev-related companies, like conferences, and they have, without them, I guess that there would be not 2% of companies who shut down operations, but at least 20. So besides them, Qualcomm was a very big, helpful hand, but thank you, Epic Games. So what happened with games? Most of Ukrainian companies totally shut down any operations on the Russian market, though at that moment they were not supposed to. We speak about GSC Game World and their Stalker. We speak about AB Games and their, in English, how do they call it? Huh? The project by AB Games. Hidden City, yeah, Hidden City. Yeah, but I must say that what differs, for example, Russia-related and Belarus-related companies who tend to call themselves international. So most of them freezed their operations, or even didn't freeze their sales in Russian and Belarusian region until now. So they were taking their time, though having offices in Ukraine and having significant amount of employees here. We have delayed releases. One of the announced is, again, Stalker. Maybe guys used it in order to have used this reason, and we really respect this reason, in order to have one more postponing. Yeah, but nevertheless, some created special events, like mystery tags, so some sales, some charitable things inside their games, or they gave some part of their revenue Even some games were even developed for fundraising. One of the first at the beginning of March was by fund Palyanytsia. It is a very cool fund. I really suggest you to support them. And they created this small game where Elon Musk was punching Kadyrov, and at the end, he was punching Putin. And I was happy to support the development and promotion of this game. And I am happy to have nothing. Okay. Yeah, some even were created to motivate people. We have this digital government application, and inside this application we had a small game developed by iLogas, where I used to work many years ago. It is called E-Bayraktar, where you could bomb the Russian troops. And of course, there start to emerge different mini games, mostly indie games devoted to the war. I'm sure that there are going to be a lot of them further on from big developers, but you can see they're quite different. Now it's time for the digits and for the salaries. So I was already speaking about the big salary report. In 2022, we asked only Ukrainians. The previous year, we had something around 660 respondents. This year, we had 760. It was much more. I really like that we have very little juniors this year, only 11% of juniors, and 5% of those who cannot rate their level. So when I'm going to show you the slides, we're going to speak about middle plus game developers. And you need to know that it was 2 weeks of May when we held this survey. So 85% of companies continue their operations. 30% of our respondents say that everyone who could agreed to be relocated inside Ukraine. 26% agreed to be relocated abroad. All switched to remote work. They show only 21%, but we'll see then the difference in the answers. And even 2% already returned to the office by that time. So before 2022, 94% of Ukrainians working in gaming industry and participating in our service lived in Ukraine. Now, only 77% of them lived in Ukraine. And I guess that if male were allowed to leave the country, this percent would be even less. So we understand that at least 17% of middle-class game developers in Ukraine fled the country. Where did they go? So the top country among our respondents is Poland, then Germany, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Spain, Portugal, and Turkey. There's also a survey run by DOUA. They asked 26, I guess, companies directly about more than 8,000 of their employees. And the top companies were the top countries where they relocated the whole teams were quite the same. First Poland, then Germany. By the way, Cyprus was not on the list of the companies relocated. The third one was there, Portugal, but the rest were quite the same. Czech Republic, Spain, and Turkey. And if we speak about relocation inside the country, according to the same analytics from DOUA, 41% had to relocate inside or outside the country. 41%. And these are the regions where most of the companies relocated. And it's understandable that the top is in the western part of Ukraine. It's a very interesting slide. What are next plans? 66% of people want to return to Ukraine. And only 10% in May 2022 were definite on not returning. Let's remember that 6% have already been relocated before war. So people are waiting for peace and are waiting to get back to their country. So we see the difference between remote work. Only 19.5% worked totally remote before war, in spite of the pandemic situation. And now 78% do so. You see, the office, only 6%, and it's understandable. So companies and war, we asked many questions on people's attitude in different ways in order to analyze the situation. And one of them was about the statements about war. This is one of the things that people really demanded from their companies, so that they made a very clear statement on their attitude to war. And if the statement was not that clear, or if it was not what people wanted to hear, they showed their attitude. So 7.5% claimed that the statements of their companies were were cool and they supported them. So they made the statements, the companies made the statements and people supported them. 3%, yes, and I don't support. 15% say that their companies made no statements, but consider it necessary. And 7.5% think that it's okay that their companies made no statements. And here one more slide. Is your company in any way affiliated to Russia? No, 48%. And then we have a very huge amount. So only think about the impact of this war on people, where 33% of game developers out of those 30,000 used to work in companies with remote staff from Russia, 17% with offices in Russia, with customers in Russia, and the company's roots, 11% company's roots from Russia, and 1.7, it is a Russian company registered in Russia. So there were people like that. We always ask people about their employee net promoter score. It's just like you have it on Booking or Airbnb. Rate from 0 to 10 how likely you are to recommend our service to your family and friends. We ask the same, how likely you are to recommend your company to your friends and family. And it's a very interesting thing that the ENPS for companies with no connection with Russia is 62. And I must say that ENPS is counted from minus 100% to plus 100%, where everything positive is already cool, and 70% as an ENPS had Apple in the best years. Yes, so 62 is really huge. So 57 remote staff from Russia, companies had offices in Russia before war, 58 customers from Russia, and then roots from there, we already have significant difference. And minus 15% for those who say that it was a Russian company. What do they plan to do next? The attitude to company was affected, but I'm ready to work with a team with no obvious roots with Russia, 36%. I would like to work in a totally Ukrainian company, 22%. And Belarus, only 14% are ready to work with companies with roots in Belarus. And only 9% say, whatever, I'm ready to work at any company. It doesn't matter to me. And if we speak about ENPS in progress in Ukraine, we can see that it almost grew 6 times since 2020. And it's very interesting that when the war started, people have higher loyalty and higher and really a better attitude to where they work now. And it was one of the insights for me in this survey. What it is interesting to know, especially for those who want to hire Ukrainians, first, I really suggest that you hire Ukrainians remote because they have already found this work-life balance. Second, you see, almost, no, you don't see. Now you see. So you see that almost 50% have upper intermediate and higher, yeah, a level of English. 30% have intermediate. And it is totally okay, especially for non-management specialities, in order to work in a multicultural and English language speaking team. This is one more question that was interesting to me personally. I included it into the survey. It's what language do you speak now? And you see that only 18% of our participants used to speak Ukrainian before war. And it means that now, and only 15% continue speaking Russian right now. The rest have switched to Ukrainian, 20%, and almost 50% are now mixing languages. And even today, I had already a conversation with Tanja, who is here. We spoke Ukrainian, though before war, we both spoke only Russian to each other. So this is an example. So the job change. Yeah, this is quite a dramatic slide where we can see that the amount of job opportunities available for Ukrainians in the office, or if they are demanded to be in Ukraine, yeah, it dropped down almost 3 times in March, and it is slightly growing, and now we have summertime, and it a bit dropped. But I hope that the trend will be growing. You see, we also ask rate from 1 to 10, how likely you are to change your job in the nearest 6 months. And we see that almost a half of the respondents are not eager to change it. And the difference is noticeable, I guess, only here, looking for a job already. It's 9 to 10, that now around 20% are looking for a job, whereas in 2021 it was 15%. And main reasons are mostly the same here. More salary, professional growth, career to develop, interesting project, relocation, it used to be the same. But here we have 17% are eager to change their job because of dissatisfaction with management and uncomfortable processes, and 15 have it like social package, bonuses and benefits, and 15 lack of or poor support for employees during the war. Imagine 17% because of support, 14 the company origin office in the Russian Federation, and 11 company's position about the war. Yeah, so, And I guess that with every bombing, which continued to happen after May, when we had this survey, these numbers are growing. I'm sure that they're growing. What is also here related to war? Belarusians, 8% company origin, office in Belarus, are eager to change their job because of this reason. The salaries. What we need to know about the salaries in Ukraine before I start showing you the figures. First is that almost none of Ukrainian companies, except a couple, but the biggest ones, almost no one hires them for as an employee. They have it like independent contractor scheme, where the employee only pays 5% of tax, and that's it. And something like less than $100 social insurance a month. And this is why, first, the salaries in Ukraine used to be much higher than in the regions of Russia. For several years, they were higher than in Moscow. And it was only Belarusia who had higher salaries than Ukrainians did. Then, when war started, the government gave us this tax benefit, and we had an opportunity to choose even 2%, to pay 2% instead of 5%, and not to pay the social insurance. But I know that the majority of producers, lead developers, art leads and directors and so on and so forth, those who are highly paid, they chose not to enjoy this benefit. One more thing that we're facing now is that as this private entrepreneur, as a contractor, we receive money, for example, in dollar or in euro, but we are obliged to sell them at the rate of the national bank. And the difference between the national bank rate and the actual rate on the market, not even in the street, but in the bank, it may differ from 20 to 30%. And we lose lots of money. And this is like some kind of a shadow tax. So a week ago, there was a rise, the first rise since March, but the exchange rate in the banks and in the streets, it also grew dramatically. So we still have this difference. Well, we'll see what's going on to be next. And when you see the figures, please mind that Ukrainians name their salaries net and monthly versus gross and annual. So, first, mind that we have comparison between respondents of different years here. So we have growth for experted roles and chief roles, and this is median. This means that half of the respondents have salary less than this number, and half of the respondents have salary higher than this number. This is the median. This is what the people who are cool analytics make us do in order to have the data validated. So the seniors also had significant growth from 2 to 2,800. The middles as well. Those who can't rate my level, usually it's something between juniors and middles. And the juniors also had quite a significant raise. If we speak about middles and specializations, so art, design, and animation, quite a big growth. Game design, programming, 500 more. even QA, and so on. So you see, HR recruiters, by the way, had significant growth, and analytics as well. And this is median for middle specialists. And these are the seniors. And we see growth everywhere, yeah? For example, the dev salaries by level this year, and we always do the thing like that. So quartile 1, median, and quartile 3. It means quartile 3, you need only to look at this, at the gray one. It means that 75% of respondents earn less, and 25 earn more. And when you are going to headhunt or really hire someone in Ukraine, you need to take this quarter line 3 and add 30%. Because it's obvious, I think you all know that the longer the person works in the company, the less salary he gets. And it's everywhere, even in the FANG US-based companies. This is HR stuff. Maybe you didn't know this. Yeah. But if you want to hire someone new, his salary would be closer to the market like now. And if especially you're headhunting him, he is supposed to ask more than he's getting right now. And one more question that we had is the same, those 760 people, we asked them, how much do you get now, how much did you get a year ago, and how much did you get in January 2022 before war? So we see, yeah, that there was growth during a year, but no change after war. Senior now get more. Middle now get more. And those who can't trade their level get less. So the salaries increased. One more thing that changed dramatically is that 48 versus 26% of Ukrainian game developers now have no financial bonuses at all. Yeah. Or consider that they have no significant financial bonuses, 15% versus 4%. Elimination of the annual bonus, quarterly, project bonus, monthly bonus, revenue share, everything dropped. One more thing that happened in Ukraine, and which I consider very important, is the charitable initiatives, both to support the industry and the industry representatives, then to support Ukrainians and to initiate fundraising between the players and the company's management and the company's staff, so that the game dev people from all over the world could spread the news, could spread the truth, and could donate or in any other way help. I'm a part of the Stand Up for Ukraine games industry initiative, where we united hundreds of companies with more than 1,000 people who were looking for a job outside of Ukraine or inside Ukraine, who lost their job, who needed support in relocate, some legal issues, and so on and so forth. We made this matchmaking. And here is a mistake, because it was not only in-game job and values value, it was DevGAMM, Games Gathering, and GDBay, five teams, and more than 30 individual top managers from the gaming industry who joined us voluntarily and who really helped us to help. So Cyprus for Ukraine, Cy for UA, also managed by IT and game dev people, and we had recently we had a charitable event held in Cyprus. Then Palyanytsa, Yes, Polyanica, which had this game dev related. These are the ex-game developers Help Kharkiv initiatives. Volunteers and companies donate. For example, AB Games donated more than $1 million. This is a totally Ukrainian team. They donated more than $1 million to Ukrainian army. And at the moment, the founder of AB Games is now founder of drone development company. They are making the military drones. And I would also like to name Game Dev Under Bombs by Games Gathering, who have already gathered more than $100,000 of donations. And they also help both military needs and the humanitarian needs. Of course, game companies support Ukraine. So Riot Games was one of the biggest donators as a company. So you can see the examples. If you want to know more, please check G4U Dev. They aggregate all the information about the companies from games industry donating. And of course, there are games that help even better. We all remember 144 million raised by Fortnite, the Humble Bundle that raised 20 million, and I would like to name the GSC game world, Stalker, who had raised more than 800,000 US dollars in their in-game, how do they call it, event, yeah? And donated it all. Art supports Ukraine. You will be able to buy some of this art as a postcard during the charitable auction that is going to be held today. If you're registered, you also can help. There are different ways you can support both game developers or Ukrainians in very hard times. And as a takeaway, do not forget about work-life balance. One important thing, canceling of Russian Federation and Belarusian-related companies. Games industry really stands with Ukraine. 70% of our respondents fled abroad. 66 plan to live in Ukraine after victory. 15% would change their job due to lack of or poor support for employees during the war. 18% of Ukrainian game developers are volunteering every day. And salaries have increased. So thank you so much. Maybe you have some questions.
Thank you, Tanja. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. Also, want to tell us a personal thanks for your sympathy position to the people from Belarus, because I personally shared the same story, fled to Ukraine from Belarus, dreaming about building a new life there, never happened, then fleeing again from Ukraine. So this is a really personal story for me. Thank you for doing all this really important things for Ukrainian people and international society as well.
Thank you so much.
So want to see Ukraine glory and victorious as soon as possible.
Oh, thank you so much.
So, and now we're ready for questions. So who want to be the first one?
Yeah, thanks for the talk. I find it kind of strange that, like you said, companies, especially outsourcers, are now growing.
Yes.
Could you shed some light on top of that? Also salaries are growing, so I would expect that salaries dropped, and outsourcers probably got some growth because of that. But that's not the case. And is it because I don't know, partners are trusting the industry or something like that?
So when the first shock ended, yes, the first, I guess, weeks, the companies ordering services or buying services from the outsourcers, they noticed that operations didn't stop, the delivery is going on, and this is a real way to support Ukrainian games industry is to buy Ukrainian services. We also had this promotion as a part of our initiative, charitable initiative. We had a list of outsourcing and service companies in Ukraine, and we widespread it among hundreds of companies, calling them to buy services from there. And it was like a chain of Ukrainians or people sympathizing Ukrainians who were promoting services proactively. For example, I didn't even ask for this help, but for Values Value, one of our ex-candidates and our ex-hiring managers, he just had this huge campaign writing emails to, I guess, every head of studio he knew, saying, please work with Values Value, they're cool, they're making great recruitment. And we had 2 contracts. And this is what was happening. Maybe it was not public, but lots of things were going on. And now outsourcers are really growing. As for the salaries, we need to understand, first, that only 2% of companies shut down their operations. Second, many companies received grants. Third, they received support and some benefits from the service providers, for example, Amazon, AWS, like a half-year free services, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so they had this opportunity to hire and to preserve their teams. Besides that, some companies from abroad are still hiring Ukrainians remote, though many of them are afraid to. But they're still hiring. And there is a very big demand on Ukrainian developers and so on and so forth. For example, a Unity lead developer, not a team lead, but like a super senior, it's like absolutely normal when he says, 6K per month, please, if you want to headhunt me. And no one is already surprised.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. More questions? Please.
Hi, thanks for the talk. I have a, I think, dumb question about the employers. Is there any list of the companies that haven't made a clear statement? Maybe is there some rating of these employers and companies which should one avoid?
Me personally, as a person with high ethic levels, yeah, and as a part of recruitment business, I'm totally against any blacklists, either for candidates or for companies. I guess that everyone who is taking his or her decision is able to Google and to find all the information that he or she is interested in. Of course, there are people who used to or are still making blacklists. But the thing is that they have no clear criteria for getting in or out this blacklist. So they can say, oh, this is a very good friend. So this girl is quite fine, no matter that her company is Russia-related. But I don't like these guys, and no matter that they are not Russia-related, but they still made no announcement, yeah. So it's a tricky question, but if you want to see those blacklists and those stories like hatred and so on and so forth, join Ukrainian game developers group on Facebook, and you will see all the zrada here.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. More questions? Anyone got something more to ask? Please.
Hi. Firstly, thank you so much for this information. It's really important for now. I'm not sure that you can provide me this information, and my question. But do you know which % of their active volunteers and some kind of sponsors who can help Ukrainian now? Are they originally from Russia and Belarus? Which % of them are not from Ukraine?
If we speak about donators, it's only what I can say. If we speak about donators, so there are many Russian donators. That's true. They are usually donated via cryptocurrency to Ukrainians, especially if it is a military donation, so that Ukrainians could donate it on their behalf, on their own behalf. Or they find ways to help. They really help a lot personally. I think that everyone, even who says, I want all Russians to be dead, their kids be dead, and so on and so forth, he knows examples, or he received support from someone from Russia, personal support and material support. The next thing, the volunteers. We have a list here, at boostinggamejob.com, helping Ukraine. We have a list of trusted funds and trusted volunteers from games industry. You can see that, I guess, a third of them are from Belarus. Because most of Russians, they cannot announce this, because maybe they have plans to visit their family for bad news or for good news, but they are willing to return to Russia for at least once, if they managed to flee the country. And that's why they do not do this publicly. But those who are related to donations, to volunteering, and so on, they know that Russians and Belarusians help. And for example, I was a part of a volunteers chain who helped to solve the huge problem on the Polish border, which was in the first days, when more than 70,000 people were there, and there was no supply chain for the volunteers from Poland, how they could transfer the food, the drinks, and so on, or anything else related to volunteers things. So one of the Belarusian ex-game development top managers, she wrote me and said, Tanja, there is such a thing going on, we need to solve it. I went to the ministers and so on and so forth, to fellow VIP people, and I also made a post on Facebook, and this post was shared, and we found the daughter, or I guess some relative, of the head of this borderline staff, and during 24 hours, the queue was less, the volunteers had opportunity to have this green corridor, green light. They had opportunity to store the food and so on and so forth in the warehouses of this borderline administration. And it was only because this one Belarusian girl said that this is a humanitarian catastrophe. And we drove attention to this. That's why it's very hard for me to say that all the Belarusians or all the Russians are like that or like this. Because one example like this, it just, Lukashenko's face is not actual anymore.
Yeah, I bet it changes the picture completely. So, thank you, Tanja, for your answer.
Thank you so
audience,
much
for your questions.
And thank you for finding the orange hole.